It's no fun when our kids are sick, but we may just have found the silver lining. Apple and raspberry and orange flavoured electrolyte slushies made by Rehydrate.
Rehydrate slushies are a tasty way to get essential electrolytes into our little ones when they're dehydrated from sickness or even just the Aussie heat. They're delicious and they'll help your little ones feel better in no time. Grab Rehydrate from Coles today. It's the Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. Well, things are changing, and they're changing fast. We are slowly beginning to adapt to this new reality, and it's been fascinating on my Facebook page looking at the extraordinary ways that people are finding connection and building well-being in their own families. To help with that, over the next little while, I'm going to be having some conversations with people that I looked up to, people who I think have got a lot to offer in helping families to be stronger and happier. And this first conversation that I'm sharing on the podcast, well, it's a touch longer than normal. It goes for around about 25 minutes or so. But I had a conversation with Renee Jain. Renee has a master's in applied positive psychology, and she runs GoZen.com. Renee is masterful in her mindfulness and the way that she helps people to manage anxiety and stay calm when things are a little crazy. Now, this conversation was supposed to be an interview where she interviewed me and I interviewed her. In the end, it turned out just being a bit of a conversation with all kinds of things going on, including her children diving in and participating in the conversation in ways that we weren't anticipating. So I started off by asking Renee what she was doing at GoZen right now to help families and people who are coming to terms with the new reality.
So we're doing a few things. So the first thing that we're doing is we have quickly figured out how to create remote learning, because our programs are essentially used in schools and they're used at home with parents. But if the school is closed and they have to do distance learning or they have to do remote learning, they need a way for students to be able to log in an asynchronous way. So, if they're not doing live instruction, they need the student at home to be able to log into GoZen. So we had to basically make a lot of shifts very quickly in the way that our software works to allow for that. We're also just
You've got kids at home, haven't you? Is that what that noise is?
I have. I'm sorry. Can you hear that? We have basketball.
It's the new reality.
Whistling. Yes, totally. There's nowhere I can go. So yes, this is life right now. It's okay. Yeah, we're still doing fine. So your question was about GoZen. Yeah, the other thing we're doing is trying to produce just as many pieces of information and resources as we can to reach as many people as we can. So, for example, there are a lot of people who are in a position of homeschooling at this point, right? Because the schools have technically closed their physical locations, but they haven't closed for, they're still saying, okay, here's your schoolwork, now you have to do it. And as an example, I have a 6 and a 7-year-old here. And I know, for you guys that don't know Justin, Dr. Coulson has 6 kids, right? So he has 3 times more than I have my brood at home, but I am still every single day sitting with them because they can't self-pace, right? So we're putting out resources about how to deal with the situation where you're homeschooling, you're also working, you're also trying to hold together the weight of the world of what's going on. And so, yeah, it's a lot. We're trying to do the best that we can. And I wake up every day feeling like I'm not doing enough, frankly.
Yeah. So at GoZen.com?
GoZen.com.
All the resources are there.
And what are you guys doing at Happy Families? I've been seeing emails coming out about webinars that you're holding and various online resources. So
I think there's a couple of things that we've been really focusing on. If I was to summarize it in 3 words, I'm approaching this and essentially saying, I've got an opportunity now to be really generous with you because you need generosity, especially people who are losing jobs and people who are worried about their futures. I've got knowledge that can help, so I'm here to not only be generous but to really serve the best that I can, and I want to provide calm assurance. We're going to be okay. It's going to be hard, and there's going to be challenges, and this is certainly unprecedented for our generation, and maybe even the generation before. This is an extraordinary time, but it's extraordinarily negative and extraordinarily positive. There's so much that is good that can come from this if we are able to create some psychological distance, if we're able to bring our anxiety down and function rationally and as normally as possible, and if we can look for the opportunities that this presents, the opportunities for our relationships, the opportunities for our for our work. Even if you're losing a job, this could be a chance to lay under the covers and cry for a little bit, but then get up and enroll in that course, that program that you've always wanted to do, start again, or start that business you've always wanted to start. There's so much good that's going to come from this, and I think we've got the potential to be better after this than before. So they're my big three things. How can I serve? How can I be generous? And how can I offer reassurance?
Yeah, one thing that you said that's really struck a chord with me is the psychological distance. And how much distance do we need in order to gain perspective? And are we able to actually, how quickly can we shift into that, right? From going from feeling these big, huge feelings, especially if we're losing jobs and we're worried about financial security, to having this perspective that this is going to end up being a meaningful experience and possibly even transform our lives in some ways. Do we need to be out of the moment? Can we actually do that in the moment?
I would say that it's analogous to when you're in a situation with your children and what you really want to do is blow up. And somehow in that moment, that high stress moment, instead of yelling and instead of name calling and doing all the other things that you naturally want to do and feel completely justified in doing, there's this incredible capacity that we have as humans to take a deep breath, recalibrate aligned with our intrinsic principles, how we think we should live, and choose a different response. And the reality is that we're all under threat right now, or at least we're feeling it, most of us. But if we can just step back, and there's a handful of different psychological strategies where we can create this distance. So one of them is what we would call temporal distancing. This is the one that I like. This is the one where you say, well, in 3 months' time, or in 3 years' time, or in 3 decades' time, we're going to look back on this period and we're going to think, X, Y, or Z. It wasn't really that bad. Or we really carried ourselves well through that. We did ourselves proud. We looked after our friends and our family and our community and our planet. We've got the opportunity to create some temporal distance. We can look at our children and we can say things like, hey, well you could say, in 3 months' time, none of this is going to matter. So, we've got these ways that we can step back. I heard a great podcast a little while ago. I don't even remember who or where, but there was a military commander, and he was saying that in the heat of battle, the people who are commanding the troops are often encouraged to literally step back 1 meter or 2 meters. And as they do that, they're I'm loving watching the kids interrupt you. You poor thing.
My love, this is Dr. Coulson, and we're talking. Doctor, yeah, he's a dentist. Actually, he's going to come pull your teeth out. Just kidding. Can you go ask Daddy, my love? He said nothing. We're going to be eating dinner in a little bit, okay?
Can we have a movie after?
Okay, I'm going to talk about it with you after I'm done. Okay, my love? Thank you, baby.
Brilliant.
They make them that cute, so
yeah,
toss them out.
Yeah, you got to hug them before they go, don't you? Just give you a little squeeze before they go. So I can't remember what I was saying, but essentially, as we
that's what keeps happening. By the way, I'm like, oh wait, what was I doing? Yeah,
the military commander. If we can step back in the thick of a battle, we actually we broaden our perspective. We can see things stepping back 1 meter or 10 meters. Sorry, in American language, 3 feet or 30 feet.
If we'll convert.
If we can move back, we see things from a completely different perspective, and that helps us to make more rational, more effective decisions. In the heat of all of the challenges that we're facing here, I think the most important thing that we do is we literally, if not literally, metaphorically, take a step back and see things through new eyes. How would our great-grandparents be looking at us right now as we're complaining about the fact that we're being asked to stay home and watch Netflix, compared to the reality that they had to go off to war and literally put their lives on the line? How much worse could it be? Imagine if we were in a war right now. I can't comprehend how extraordinarily, exquisitely painful an actual war would be compared to what we're dealing with. Now, I know people are using a wartime analogy or metaphor at the moment for this, but the reality is, for most of us, we're not strapping guns to our backs and running to the front line and dodging bullets. Imagine if somebody somehow infiltrated our water system, and all of a sudden the entire planet couldn't get access to clean water. Like this is I'm not trying to minimize the significance of what we're facing, because it's significant. It's enormous. And yet, in perspective, as we do these comparisons, it's like, well, you know what, we actually probably can get through this if we're just a bit sensible. We can probably even put a positive frame around this. We can find some gratitude. We can find some hope. And that's kind of the message that I think we really want to promote, so that people can feel that calm assurance and know it's going to be okay.
I think there is definitely an ebb and flow where people have perspective and they feel like, okay, it could be worse, right? There are a lot of things that could be worse. There have been a lot of things in the world that have been worse. I think where the worry starts to spiral out of control, where we start to think into the future and we get stuck there, is we don't know how long this is going to last. Is it going to be indefinite? Am I going to be able to survive like this in whatever way whatever that means for a family, like this for an indefinite amount of time? And I feel like I have heard from a lot of people that is a particular struggle. And I wonder if there's any solace, advice, guidance you can give those people.
What have you been saying? I've got a couple of ideas, but I'd love to know what you've been saying when people say that to you.
Yeah, I say, you know what? I think that we have this beautiful ability to simulate the future, and that I know that a lot of people who teach mindfulness will say, listen, you have to come into the now. We have to stay in the now. Is this happening in the now? And if it's not, then bring yourself back into the now. And I think there's value in that. For me, I think there is also value in this ability to be perspective, to think about the future, to think about different timelines. I think it's a very unique quality that humans have. And I think it can serve you when you are making contingency plans, when you are doing, okay, well, if this happens, then I will do this, right? You make some plans and that gives you assurance. I think where the problem starts is when you can't come from the future back into the present moment, when you are unable to return back and ground yourself and ground your nervous system. And so what I have been saying is that the place you're in? Are you in the place where you're thinking effectively about the future? You're making some plans about the future, and that's okay. And that's what we do. And actually, I think it's a cool human quality. Or are you in the place where you're living there consistently, constantly, and you are not able to come back into the now? And if you are, then let's work on that. That's what I've been saying.
Yeah, there's something really powerful about acceptance. When we simply accept things as they are, we're actually more likely to sit in the now really well. And I'm thinking about anxiety, and anxiety is essentially an anticipated. We become fearful about what's coming. We're anticipating something negative in our future. No matter what situation you're in, I guarantee being anxious about it will make it worse. There's a time and a place for it, and it's a valuable thing to feel. But once it starts to intrude on our thinking in those dysfunctional, negative, unhelpful ways, you just don't make things better by sitting in anxiety. The next four things are things that I've been thinking about quite a lot lately, and I think that they're relevant for all of us, but especially for parents. The first thing is that our children and we, that those people that you've been listening to, what they actually need more than psychological strategies and techniques, I think they just need to be heard. We need to say, yeah, this is a real big struggle right now, isn't it? It's really challenging. This must be so overwhelming for you, especially now that you've just lost your job. You must feel like you just want to lay in bed and pull a doona over your head and cover yourself with a pillow and not come out for ever. This is crushing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I love in the Tom Hanks movie about Fred Rogers, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, he uses this beautiful line. He says, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And to me, what happens is when somebody comes to us and says, I'm just so angry, or I'm so scared about the future, and when is this ever going to end? I think it's entirely appropriate to say, when we look at this open-ended lockdown and this new reality, it's just overwhelming, isn't it? And to be able to respond to their fear with an acknowledgement that it is overwhelming without adding to it, it doesn't give them an emotional bump up. It actually helps them to rebalance and recenter themselves. It actually creates some psychological distance because they now know that the experiences, the emotions they're feeling are a normal part of the human experience right now. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's maybe one of the most important things we can do. And we do it with our children as well. I want to visit Grandma. Oh, wouldn't it be so nice? I wish we could visit Grandma too, but she lives in another house. Would you like to FaceTime? I want to play with my friends. It's my birthday next week. I want to have a birthday party. Oh, having a birthday party would be so much fun. In fact, I call this giving in fantasy what we can't have in reality. We actually live into it. If we could, who would you invite? How much fun what games would we play? What cake would we have? Oh, that would be so much fun. Imagine how great that would be. And I know that sounds like we're being nasty, but it's actually letting them know that we understand. And then we say, well, you know that we're in lockdown, so there's only a few of these things that we can do, but let's look at the things that we can do. So I would say our children need to be heard. I think that they also need humour. Like there is so much. You've seen the creativity on the internet? People are being so funny about.
I know. The funny bone is activated. I love it. I love it. I love to laugh. I love to make others laugh. I think that we underuse humor, especially with our kids.
Laughter is the best medicine, right? And we can joke about self-isolation. We can joke about homeschooling. I saw one person say, I think mine might be the first homeschool where the teacher was fired for being drunk and 3 kids got expelled on the same day. It's really, really tricky.
I wrote that.
But if we could just laugh, or we could just laugh about other stuff, let's tickle and roll around on the floor and wrestle and pretend that the rest of the world actually isn't going through this just now, even if it's for a few minutes. It's okay to do that. People who work on the front line, they have what we call gallows humor, and that's what helps them to become unified. And it also helps them through those stressful times, because if you don't laugh, you probably will cry.
Yes.
I reckon the third thing that our children need is they need an opportunity to help. And even as adults, there's things that we can do to be helpful. I'm again amazed at the creativity of helpfulness. There's a Facebook page called The Kindness Pandemic. And there's all of these people sharing the kindnesses that they're seeing in Italy and in France and in Spain and in the United States. People like John Legend getting onto Instagram and doing impromptu concerts. People are doing concerts off their balconies, instead of performing in front of their packed art houses or concert halls. People are finding ways to help and inspire and lift, and it's just beautiful. And our children can do that. And what happens when we find ways for our children to help and make a difference is we give them the fourth thing that I think they need right now, and that's hope. We give them hope. We make them believe that, well, hang on, if I'm not a victim here, I can be an agent of change and I can make a difference in my own life and in the lives of others. So to me, they're the big 5 things that that are really going to move the needle.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's amazing to me that if you're feeling as a parent that you don't have hope, you literally actually just have to hang around with some kids, especially. So again, my kids are 6 and 7. I mean, they wake up daily with hope, and every moment of everything they do, there is hope. And of course, they cannot understand the gravity of the situation and what's going on in the world. And so they're feeling it in a different way, but they rejuvenate, right? Every single day if I get to a point where I'm feeling a little down or I'm feeling, oh my goodness, I just have to hang out with them for a moment, because they are so in the now. They are so in their flow. They are so hopeful, right, about their next little thing that they're going to do or tomorrow, that it's infectious, as infectious as, I would say, any kind of virus is.
Yeah.
Their hope, their laughter, their joy is infectious.
I love that. Just like coronavirus will get inside and spread. Things like kindness and joy and delight do exactly the same thing. And the negative things, things like selfishness, they spread too. Toilet paper wars, anyone? So I love what you said there. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. So what do we do? So what do you do? What are things that I would love to know, because you always have it so together, but I want to know what you struggle with. Can you share something? Like, what is a struggle for you, or maybe in this situation, like in particular?
I'm really opening myself up here. I normally wouldn't talk like this, but let's see how we go. Anxiety has never been a thing ever for me, but lately, increasingly, I'm feeling it, and it's really hard. And I have to keep on practicing all of these strategies and techniques myself to bring myself back to the now and to focus on what I can do and do my best to help others. And
so what I was asking you is, the experiences that you're having, does it change the perspective with which you give guidance to others? Has it made you kind of test your own theories in any way?
For sure. I remember having an insight when I was with a friend a little while ago now. We were talking about one of my daughters was complaining, I can't walk because my legs hurt because she had growing pains. And my friend said to me, you don't grow without pain. Whether it's physically or psychologically and emotionally, socially, spiritually, whatever it might be, we have to go through hard things to become better. It's the hard things that make us stronger. The pain leads to growth if we let it. It can be refining, and it makes us increasingly resilient. So, that's probably the biggest thing that I'm challenged by, but I'm grateful for it. And once again, using all of those psychological distancing strategies, it makes me think, well, what would such and such do? That takes me out of the situation. Or come on, Justin, you've got this. Speaking to myself in the third person, that changes my distance to the situation, and all of a sudden I'm able to think rationally and say, yeah, I do got this, or this is what Renee Jain would do. It goes in, or this is what this mentor of mine over here would do, or this is what this great example or thinker would do. All of those things create the psychological distance, which means now I'm coming up with different strategies with which to move forward. So I think that would probably be it. What about you? In the US, your circumstances are, from everything that I'm seeing on Twitter at least, fairly elevated, I guess would be the word that I might use.
Yeah. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of panic. There are a lot of restrictions. So I live in Los Angeles, and you can hear my kids in the background. We are home all day together, and there are certain times of the day where we are having independent time, which is what we're calling it. So mommy's working and the kids are working on, their school stuff. And then we come back together, but there's a lot of bleed over, as there is going to be. So one of the things that I'm struggling with is creating those boundaries and allowing the boundaries to be fluid.
Yeah.
It's like you can create boundaries, but you can draw a line in the sand, but then you need to erase the line and make a different line many, many times in a day. And then having compassion towards myself to know that that's okay. That's going to happen. This is part of what is going on right now. And to maintain feeling centered and grounded so that I'm able to show up as the parent I want to be. It's a lot to take on the additional role of being the facilitator for homeschooling. I think anybody is qualified to do it as a parent if you put effort into it, but it's definitely not something that happens overnight, So the ability to help my kids pace themselves, to help them get through it, to help them with the change, huge change, instead of going into a classroom and it's not interactive, there are videos being sent home. Yeah, so this is a big challenge, but the biggest one really is being able to be fluid with the boundaries that I am creating for my own self-care and for the self-care as like our family unit, essentially.
Yeah, really, really tough. The thing that I've been saying to parents when they come to me with that is lower your expectations. Just drop those expectations right down. In fact, what I would do is whatever you expect, if you divide it by half, and then you divide that by another 3.
And then drop it down below that.
A little bit below that. And you're probably still a bit too high. The lower your expectations are, the more satisfied you'll be. I don't know that there are any easy answers. What I've been advising parents is, instead of having a really strict timetable, just have a commitment to have 3 or 4 things happen every day. Work out what those 3 or 4 things need to be for your family, because they'll be different in every home. And so long as they happen, that's probably the main thing. And it depends on the age of your kids, and it depends on what sort of support they're getting from the school. But the reality is, your children don't need you to be their teacher. They need you to be their parent.
Yes.
And I think that's what we've also got to hang on to. We need to be connecting. And if we're having fights over schoolwork, we're having fights over screen time, we're having fights over leave your sister alone, we probably need to just pause our own work for 5 minutes or 20 minutes, go have a wrestle, go read a book, go play a game. And when everyone's calm and centered again, then go and get back into it. Expectations and boundaries and lots of distractions and physical activity, all that sort of stuff. So important.
So important. We just we've been doing daily walks around the neighborhood, which has been really interesting. I've lived here for 2.5 years. I'm seeing streets I've never seen before. It's kind of amazing. And so yes, this is the thing that all 4 of us do together twice a day. And it's been eye-opening. It's like, oh my goodness, the four of us haven't taken a walk in this neighborhood since we moved here.
That's amazing.
That's unbelievable.
Isn't it? Isn't it just...
I have a little rascal, I think, behind me, walking behind me. But yeah, it's amazing. You do have to lower expectations, lower boundaries. And I love how you said cut it in half and then cut it again by a third and then basically subtract it by 1,000.
Yeah, and then you may be getting close. Yeah.
Yes,
I just saw your kids wrestling in the background right as you were saying that. I was like, yeah, that's about how it is.
Yes.
This is real life.
Yes.
Well, we probably should wrap this up. Hopefully it's been helpful. Renee,
so helpful.
If people want to know more about what you offer through GoZen, where would you want me to send them?
I would want you to send them to gozen.com. And we're also running a free Facebook group, which if you come to gozen.com, you'll find the Facebook group. But it's on Facebook and it's called Get Superpowered, and basically delivering resilience skills and, having conversations like this every day. The easiest thing is gozen.com.
Fantastic.
And what about you, Dr. Coulson?
Thanks for asking. happyfamilies.com.au, although there's nothing much happening on my website. It's all happening on my Facebook page at the moment. So Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families. In fact, we've just done something really fun. Because we're living the dream like you are, with the kids at home and all that kind of thing. Kylie and I have created a group just off our Facebook page. It's called Bunker Down with Justin and Kylie. We thought lockdown sounded a bit too harsh. So we've got Bunker Down with Justin and Kylie. And Kylie, who's usually very, very private, I've convinced her, she's got early childhood qualifications. And so I've convinced her to become a little bit more active on that page. And this little Bunker Down with Justin and Kylie Facebook page has got several thousand people in there who are now just sharing all of the good news stories that are coming from their families, the way they're interacting with their children. The reality is that they probably take the photo and say, look at the awesome stuff we're doing, and then 3 minutes later the kids are at each other and it's gone downhill. But the photos are coming out nice and the stories are beautiful. and Kylie's doing, story time for the kids. She's reading stories over the internet to kids and just little things like that. So I think that's probably the best spot. And again, same as you, really coming at it from a sense of let's just be generous, let's serve. At the moment, people have got enough on their plates. We don't need to be flogging stuff at people. And so we're really just trying to help. So if anyone else wants to join in, we'd love for you to join Bunker Down with Justin and Kylie. Well, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. More like that soon to come. If you do enjoy the Happy Families podcast, please leave us a review, just like #Queen_me #, who said, I loved the 4 H's. My kids and I had a really tough year last year, and we were looking forward to moving on this year. But now we feel so stuck. I'm going to use the H to get us laughing every day. Thanks for the reminder. If you enjoy the podcast and can leave a review or a rating, that helps other people to discover the podcast and make their families happy as well. So please do that. In the meantime, check out Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families Facebook page for more ideas about how you can make your family happier. And I'll see you or speak to you on the next podcast.